It's starting already.
Hello! My name is Ali Hurtado, and this is my presentation on Michelangelo. And for my paper topic, I decided to write about Michelangelo and the religious and political impacts that went into his creation of the David. So a little bit about Michelangelo's life. He was born in Caprese, which is a town near Tuscany, in 1475. His mother died at a very young age, so it was up to his father to raise him. And in 1485, he moved to Florence and became an apprentice for a famous donor of the arts named David. When he was living with David, he really discovered a lot about his artistic talent and really explored classical Renaissance and paintings. But then in 1490, Lorenzo di Medici, also known as the Magnificent, invited Michelangelo to live in his palace, and this was really a blossoming time for Michelangelo's career as he went more into the sculpting business, which was his true passion. He didn't like to be called a painter, he considered himself a sculptor. So then in 1501, Michelangelo returned from Rome and went to Florence, and that's when he began to create the David, which was finished in 1504, and then sadly he died in 1564. Religion in Florence at the time was a really big impact in Michelangelo's life and all of the Florentines as well. So the story of David became a huge political metaphor and symbol for the Republican liberty. So what that means is the Florentines are going through a hard time with their government, and their freedom was very fragile and precious to them. So they were constantly under threat from France, and they wanted to protect their freedom. So David was a symbol of determination for them, as they were a tiny little city compared to big France, as David was a tiny man compared to a big giant Goliath. Next. So the story behind David is from 1 Samuel in the Old Testament of the Bible. The Israelites and the Palestinians are going to war against each other, and the Palestinians chose Goliath as their weapon, and basically he said, like, choose somebody from your village who you think can face me. And Goliath was a very big giant, and David was just a small boy, about 15 years old. So, and the story goes that David ended up defeating Goliath with a sling, and he slingshot a rock to his head, knocked him out, and then used Goliath's sword to kill him. So David really became a sign of hope for the people of Florence. Creating the David. The David was created in 1501 through 1504, so it took about 4 years to create him. Michelangelo was only 26 when he created David, so that's pretty remarkable. A lot of other artists were considered before Michelangelo to create the David, but they all saw the task as very daunting and made little progress, but not enough to finish it, so they were signed off the project. It was completed on January 25th of 1504. David weighs over 6 tons and is 17 feet tall. He's created from a giant block of marble from a quarry in northern Tuscany. The original plan for the David was to be located on top of the Duomo in Florence, but once they realized that he was 6 tons and 17 feet tall, they realized that wasn't possible. So he's now he was placed in the Plaza del Signoria, and this is the town square in Florence, and it was a place of central authority, and so they saw it fitting for David to be placed there. But after some acts of vandalism, David was moved to the Academy in Florence, which is where I had the pleasure of seeing him, and now over 3 million people come to visit David in the Academy each year. So thank you very much.